It's the kind of job you really have to enjoy because it's a very unnatural kind of life in a way. I mean, no one ever meant anyone to go to the theatre 6 or 7 times a week.
The most powerful man in American theater is not an actor or producer or director, nor is he even an American. He's a 45-year-old Englishman named Clive Barnes, for the past 7 years the principal drama critic of the New York Times. Barnes' reviews are not only read on and off Broadway, but by way of the Times news service all across the country. In a business where 24 plays a year fold after one performance, many to huge financial losses, a bad notice from Barnes can deal the death blow. Barnes has described himself as a typical British overachiever. He reviews dance as well as drama for the Times, and freelances for more magazines than most of us read. Recently, I spent a day with Barnes. It began at New York University, where he teaches a class in critical writing. Then to the Times, where he wrote and recorded his daily spot for the paper's radio station. In the evening, Barnes and his wife attended the first major opening of the Broadway season, a short-lived rock musical called Dude. Then they rushed back to the Times so Barnes could complete tomorrow's review by the 11:30 deadline. It was a hectic day, but for Barnes, quite typical.
What we're going to talk about this morning is the purpose, nature and function of criticism. It's a broad subject. What more can I tell you? Well, I thought we'd start by talking about what is the need for criticism, who reads criticism, and why have criticism. Anyone got any feelings about that so far? Does anyone? Is there anyone who feels that criticism is a complete waste of time? I've had them in class. Sometimes they've nearly convinced me. But is there anyone who feels that there's no point to it? No. What do you feel is the purpose of it? How do you feel about it?
If there were no critics, and people had this many shows to pick from, they would probably just not. This way you take care, well, the critics agree on the garbage, and it closes, and that's that much less that people have to decide what to see from. And in that way, I think it's important.
I find a certain skepticism in the written word, and a great reliance on the spoken word. I think a lot of us feel this way. I mean, this word of mouth business, and a lot of us will take more seriously what someone has said to us at a dinner party than a critic we've been reading, half of our adult lives. I mean, I'm not denying that they are, in many instances, powerful, of course, but eventually, I think that the really big shows, the Fiddlers, the Dollies, they work because most people who saw them like them and recommend them to their friends. Hello, this is Clive Barnes. In January 1970, in celebration of his 70th birthday, Noel Coward was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II. I am expecting his canonization by an even higher authority almost daily. St. Noel would somehow sound even more appropriate than Sir Noel. Sir Noel. I think that one of the difficulties of especially the New York Times critic, is that he's tend to be thought of as a voice of authority rather than just one man voicing one opinion. I mean, anyone in this particular job would have more or less, give or take very little, the same power. It is the New York Times.
How much stock do you take in the cries that the American theater is dead?
I don't think the American theater has ever been more lively. There are a lot of young playwrights writing. For the first time we have subsidized theatre so that the need to make a buck is not quite so pressing. We have the beginning of serious ensemble theatre. I would have thought that the theatre is in an extremely healthy condition.
What's your prognosis for the future?
Well, critics are never very good at prognosis, otherwise they'd probably be creative artists. They're always guys who are looking back rather than looking forward. But I think that there will be much more serious theatre, perhaps far fewer of the lighter weight theatre, far fewer musicals perhaps. and that kind of theatre, I think that subsidy in theatre will become more important. And I think we will probably see the director and the playwright becoming rather more important than the individual actor, and certainly, I hope, more important than the individual producer.
Under your setup at the Times right now, you have to do a lot of reviewing. Do you get jaded going out night after night trying to write something?
The curious thing is, if you did, you'd give the job up. I mean, it's the kind of job you really have to enjoy because it's a very unnatural kind of life in a way. I mean, no one ever meant anyone to go to the theatre 6 or 7 times a week, and you really got to enjoy it. You do have this kind of inbuilt virginity. In fact, almost every time seems the first time. Personally, I would like to see first night's band, and I'd like to see critics go to performances over a period of 4 or 5 days. They choose which one they went to, and at the end, all the notices would come out together. But they would be the result of having seen different performances. They would be the result of having perhaps a little more leisure to write the notice and to think about it. I think some people like to write at speed. I do myself. I don't mind writing the notice immediately after the play is over, but I would rather like to keep it until the next morning, and then if I wanted to change it, perhaps rewrite here and there, and then submit it.
Well, what about Dude, Mr. Barnes?
Well, you saw it. It had its merits, but it was one of those difficult shows, a mixed show. It never came up to its ambitions and aspirations. I think that it will probably be rather badly reviewed tomorrow. My review, I should think, will be one of the kindest it will get.
It's been said that you'll review almost anything. How would you sum up your day's activities today?
Well, it was a pretty kind of busy but fairly average day. To have made it really happy would have needed for Dude, for me to have thought that was a big hit. Because I love it when it's a great feeling when the end of the day and you get this kind of smashing show at the end, which works out wonderfully well. It gives you a great lift. Whereas you never feel happy about writing this kind of notice. It's a miserable kind of thing to have to do. You don't like it, but it's made up for when the good ones come along. You can really go out dancing.